Silly tourist ignores the protocol at historic guard post. The air was crisp, carrying a hint of the nearby gardens, and the distant chatter of visitors filled the courtyard. A small group of tourists had just arrived, their eyes wide with excitement. They had traveled far, eager to witness the ceremonial changing of the guards, an event they had seen in countless photographs but never in real life. Among the group, there was a mix of personalities. There was Mia, who loved taking pictures of everything she saw; Raj, who was fascinated by history and architecture; Lily, who could never resist a funny pose for the camera; and Tom, who had a habit of rushing ahead to see things up close. They moved as a cluster, each carrying bags, cameras, and the unmistakable air of travelers who wanted to capture every moment. The guide, a calm man named Mr. Singh, led them through the cobbled path toward the main courtyard. He had a quiet but firm presence, and his voice carried easily in the open space. "Welcome, everyone, to the historic guard post. This place has stood for centuries, and it is home to one of the most disciplined and respected ceremonial guards in the country. Please pay attention to the rules. Do not cross the marked lines, do not touch the guards, and remain silent during the ceremony. It is very important to show respect." The tourists nodded politely, some with more interest than others. Mia whispered to Lily, "Don't worry, I'll get some perfect selfies with the guards. They're so stiff and serious it'll look hilarious." Lily giggled quietly, already imagining the pictures she could take. Raj, on the other hand, listened intently to Mr. Singh, fascinated by the stories of the post's history and the dedication of the guards. Tom, as usual, seemed to be in a hurry to reach the front, ignoring the guide's instructions and scanning the courtyard for the best spot to stand. As they entered the main area, the tourists were immediately struck by the sight of the guards. They stood perfectly still, their uniforms crisp and immaculate, their faces expressionless, and their eyes forward. Each movement, from the turning of a head to the adjustment of a hat, was precise, controlled, and measured. The tourists could feel the air of discipline, a quiet power that seemed to radiate from every guard. "Wow," whispered Mia, her eyes wide behind her camera. "They look like statues." "Yes," said Raj quietly, "but these aren't just statues. Each one of them has trained for years to achieve this level of control. They don't just stand here, they represent history, pride, and respect for tradition." Lily leaned closer to Mia, whispering, "I think we should get a picture. Look, that one is staring straight ahead. It would be perfect for a funny pose." Mia nodded eagerly, and the two of them began plotting how to get the best angle without being noticed. Tom, meanwhile, had edged a little closer to the guards, ignoring the painted lines on the ground. He crouched slightly, peeking at the guard closest to him, and took out his phone. Mr. Singh noticed Tom's movement and quietly called out, "Please stay behind the line, sir." "The guards cannot be disturbed." Tom froze for a moment, realizing he had crossed the boundary, and quickly stepped back. "Oh, sorry, sir," he said sheepishly. But within seconds, his curiosity got the better of him, and he moved closer again, muttering something about wanting a closer look. The other tourists, noticing Tom's near miss, became more eager. "Let's all get a picture," Lily exclaimed, tugging Mia forward. "We'll make it look like we're part of the ceremony. It will be hilarious," Mia agreed, adjusting her camera and planning to sneak a few shots. Raj sighed quietly, shaking his head, but said nothing. He didn't want to spoil the fun, even though he understood the importance of respecting the guards. The ceremony began with a deep, resonant drumbeat, followed by the sharp, measured steps of the guards. The tourists paused, momentarily impressed by the synchronized movements and the solemn rhythm. The sound echoed across the courtyard, and even the visitors who had been chatting stopped to watch. The guards moved with precision, their rifles swinging in unison, their boots striking the stone floor with a soft but commanding sound. Mia and Lily, unable to resist, began creeping closer, trying to frame the perfect shot without being too obvious. Tom, ignoring the rules completely now, stepped slightly forward, his excitement overcoming caution. Mr. Singh's voice rose slightly, a gentle but firm warning. Please maintain a safe distance. The guards are not to be disturbed. This is a serious ceremony. For a moment, the tourists froze, realizing the seriousness of the moment. The guards' eyes seemed to scan the crowd, their presence so strong that even the most playful visitor could feel the weight of tradition. Yet, the temptation of capturing the perfect photo was too strong. Mia adjusted her camera, Lily posed dramatically, and Tom edged forward again, whispering, "Just one quick picture, it'll be fine." The guide's patience was tested. He knew that many tourists didn't understand the depth of respect required at historic sites. He also knew that once the line of discipline was crossed, it could cause embarrassment for the visitors and even create tension with the guards. Still, he remained calm, hoping a firm but quiet reminder would suffice. As the ceremony continued, the tourists' fascination grew. The guards' movements were so precise, so synchronized, that it almost felt like watching a dance. Each step, each turn, each adjustment of the uniform seemed purposeful, telling a story of dedication and honor. Raj whispered to himself, "It's incredible how much training it must take to remain this focused." Meanwhile, Mia and Lily's playful antics continued. They whispered jokes, tried to mimic the guards from a distance, and occasionally ducked behind other tourists to capture their secret shots. Tom, more daring than ever, leaned just slightly into the forbidden zone, imagining the perfect angle for a dramatic photo. Mr. Singh's eyes followed him closely, ready to intervene before any real breach occurred. Despite their excitement, the tourists began to notice the reactions of other visitors. Some were watching silently, clearly impressed and respectful, while others were whispering, sharing amusement at the sight of Mia, Lily, and Tom trying to balance fun with caution. The tourists themselves began to feel a mix of thrill and nervousness, thrill at being close to something historic, and nervousness at the potential consequences of ignoring the rules. As the ceremony reached a particularly impressive part, the tourists were drawn in completely. The sound of boots, the rhythmic movements, and the sharp attention of the guards created a scene that was both mesmerizing and humbling. Even Mia and Lily, usually focused on fun, paused to appreciate the discipline and history before them. Tom, caught up in the moment, finally stepped back slightly, realizing that some things were bigger than a photograph. Mr. Singh smiled quietly, noticing the change. He knew the group was learning slowly that respect for tradition mattered more than a perfect selfie. He hoped that by the end of the ceremony, they would leave with not only photos but also a sense of understanding and appreciation. As the first part of the day drew to a close, the tourists remained in the courtyard, still buzzing with excitement. They had seen something rare, something that required patience and attention, and they were beginning to grasp the significance of the rules. Even the mischievous ones had learned, in their own small way, that the guard post was not just a place to play. It was a living piece of history, and the people who maintained it deserved respect. The morning ended with the tourists taking a few more cautious photos from a safe distance, their laughter now tempered with awareness. Mr. Singh guided them toward the exit of the courtyard, gently reminding them that the next group of visitors would soon arrive, and that each person who came had the right to experience the ceremony without disturbance. As they walked away, the guards continued their silent vigil, unbothered and resolute. The tourists glanced back one last time, a mixture of awe and amusement in their eyes, carrying with them a story that would be retold in photos, videos, and memories. A story of excitement, curiosity, and the first lesson in understanding the delicate balance between fun and respect at a historic guard post. The sun had climbed higher in the sky, warming the cobblestones of the historic guard post and casting long shadows across the courtyard. The tourists, still brimming with excitement from the earlier part of the day, had begun to grow bolder. Mia, Lily, and Tom were whispering among themselves, their eyes constantly darting toward the guards. They had watched the first part of the ceremony in awe, but now curiosity and mischief had begun to take hold. It started subtly. Tom, ever impatient and eager to see everything up close, took a small step forward, inching past the marked line on the ground. At first it seemed harmless. The guard closest to him did not react, remaining perfectly still with a calm, expressionless face. Encouraged by this, Tom edged a little closer, imagining that he could get an even better view and a more exciting photo. "Don't get too close, mister," Singh whispered urgently, catching Tom's attention. "Remember the rules. You cannot disturb the guards." Tom paused, but only briefly. He was fascinated by the precision of the guards' movements and wanted to experience it up close. Meanwhile, Mia and Lily began plotting their own antics. They had noticed how still and serious the guards were, and they couldn't resist the temptation to have a little fun. Whispering excitedly, they compared poses and laughed quietly, imagining the silly photos they could take without getting caught. At first, their movements were subtle. Lily crouched slightly behind a small pillar to snap a hidden shot, while Mia held her camera at a safe angle, trying to capture the guards without crossing the line. But the more they watched, the more confident they became. Seeing Tom sneak forward encouraged them to push the boundaries too. Soon, they were moving closer, taking small steps toward the guard closest to them, all while giggling and whispering about their plan. The ceremony continued in perfect rhythm. The guards' synchronized movements, the sharp turn of their heads, and the click of their boots created an almost musical cadence. The tourists were captivated, drawn into the rhythm and mesmerized by the discipline on display. Raj, who had remained quietly respectful, couldn't help but admire the guards' dedication. "It is amazing," he muttered softly, "how much practice it must take to remain so precise for hours. It is not just about standing there, it is about pride and honor." But the playful group, caught between admiration and mischief, could not resist further antics. Lily began to mimic the guards from a short distance away, copying their stance and hand positions in exaggerated form. Mia, laughing quietly, tried to get a picture of Lily pretending to be a guard. Tom, emboldened by the lack of immediate reprimand, leaned even closer, holding his phone at a low angle to capture a dramatic photo of the guard on duty. It was then that the tension began to rise. A senior guard who had been observing the group from a few steps away shifted slightly. His eyes, sharp and focused, scanned the tourists with careful attention. He noticed Tom's proximity and the subtle mimicry of Lily and Mia. The guard did not move, did not speak, but his presence alone created a noticeable shift in the atmosphere. The air seemed heavier, charged with the silent warning of discipline. Mr. Singh, sensing the growing risk, moved closer to the group. "Please, everyone," he said firmly, though quietly enough not to disturb other visitors. "The guards are performing a serious ceremony. Do not cross the line. Do not distract them. This is very important." For a moment the tourists froze, realizing that their actions were being noticed. The playful thrill of bending the rules was suddenly replaced with a nervous awareness. They exchanged worried glances. "Maybe we went too far," Mia whispered to Lily. Lily shrugged but quickly returned to her antics, unable to resist the temptation to get one more photo. Tom, noticing the senior guard's watchful gaze, hesitated, unsure if he should step back or continue. Then, in a moment of excitement, something small but significant happened. Lily, trying to take a better angle for a photo, accidentally stepped closer to the guard than she should have. Her foot brushed against the edge of the forbidden line. The guard's head turned slightly, his eyes locking onto hers for the briefest moment. The movement was subtle, but it was enough to make Lily freeze in place. Mia, realizing what had happened, whispered urgently, "Step back, step back." Tom, seeing the reaction, panicked slightly and took a hurried step back as well. But the energy of mischief was hard to contain. The group, despite their awareness, continued to inch closer, whispering jokes and trying to capture moments they felt were too good to miss. Mr. Singh's patience was thinning. He gently placed a hand on Tom's shoulder, guiding him back, and reminded the others again about the importance of respecting the guards and the rules of the post. Even with the guide's warnings, the group could not resist a few more playful gestures. They mimicked the guards' poses, quietly whispered among themselves, and tried to take hidden photos. The guards remained calm, moving in perfect synchronization, but the senior guard's watchful eyes tracked every step. He was silent, but his presence alone was enough to communicate the seriousness of the situation. The courtyard, once filled with only the steady rhythm of the ceremony and quiet admiration from respectful tourists, now carried an undertone of tension. Other visitors noticed the antics, some smiling quietly at the tourists' daring behavior, others frowning, feeling the group was crossing a line. The atmosphere was delicate, balanced between admiration for the guards and the playful mischief of the tourists. The guide, sensing that the situation might escalate, decided it was time for a firmer approach. He knelt slightly to be at eye level with Tom, whispering, "You must stay behind the line. The guards cannot be distracted. One wrong move could cause embarrassment or a serious problem." Tom nodded quickly, though he could not hide the lingering curiosity in his eyes. Mia and Lily, seeing Tom's compliance, reluctantly stepped back as well, their laughter now subdued and tinged with nervousness. Despite the warnings, the group's fascination was not over. They continued to watch closely, captivated by the precision and dedication of the guards. Every step, every turn, every small adjustment of a uniform was fascinating. Raj quietly explained to the others, "Look at their discipline. Each movement is intentional. They are not just performing, they are preserving a tradition. That is why the rules exist." The playful tourists began to realize slowly the importance of restraint. Their excitement and curiosity were natural, but respect had to come first. The senior guard's quiet authority, combined with Mr. Singh's calm reminders, created a lesson they would not soon forget. Even Mia and Lily, who had been focused on fun, now watched the ceremony with genuine admiration, their cameras held at a safe distance. Tom, still eager but now cautious, observed the guards without crossing the line. As the ceremony reached a dramatic point, with the guards performing a complex sequence of movements, the group felt a mix of awe and nervousness. They had learned, through a combination of warnings and the silent presence of the guards, that respect and curiosity could coexist, but only when boundaries were honored. The air was filled with the soft rhythm of boots on stone and the silent discipline of history in motion. By the end of the ceremony, the tourists had gained a deeper understanding. Their earlier mischief was replaced with a careful appreciation of the guards' dedication. Even the playful energy of Mia and Lily had transformed into quiet admiration, and Tom's curiosity had been tempered by respect. Raj, satisfied that the lesson had been learned, smiled quietly, feeling a sense of pride in the group's growth. The tourists left the courtyard more aware of the importance of discipline, tradition, and respect. They carried with them memories, photos, and a story that blended excitement, curiosity, and a gentle lesson. The guards, still standing tall and unmoved, remained a silent reminder of the balance between admiration and respect, discipline and play, history and the present. The excitement that had carried the tourists through the morning now began to give way to a sense of tension. Even though the guide, Mr. Singh, had repeatedly reminded them about the rules, the small acts of mischief in the courtyard had not gone unnoticed. The senior guard, standing tall and calm, had observed the group carefully throughout the ceremony. While the tourists had stepped back slightly after the subtle warnings, the atmosphere had grown charged. It was clear that the final part of the ceremony would soon test the tourists' patience, discipline, and sense of respect. The group lingered near the edge of the courtyard, trying to appear calm while still stealing glances at the guards. Mia, holding her camera, whispered to Lily, "I think we got some good shots, maybe too close for comfort." Lily giggled nervously. "Yeah, but it was worth it, wasn't it?" Tom, who had been unusually quiet for several minutes, adjusted his backpack and muttered, "I just hope we don't get in trouble." "I didn't mean to disrespect anyone." Raj, who had maintained a careful balance of admiration and caution all along, sighed quietly. He could feel that the moment of reckoning was approaching. As the final sequence of the ceremony began, the guards' movements became more intricate and deliberate. Each step, each turn, and each adjustment was performed with precision that made it almost impossible to look away. Visitors from other groups watched in silence, some taking pictures from safe distances, others simply absorbing the spectacle with awe. The contrast between the disciplined guards and the playful tourists had grown more noticeable, and whispers began to spread among nearby visitors. People exchanged glances, some smiling at the tourists' earlier antics and others frowning, sensing that boundaries had been pushed. Mr. Singh noticed the subtle changes in the crowd's mood and stepped closer to the group. "Everyone, please remain still and behind the line," he said quietly but firmly. "The guards are performing a serious ceremony. It is very important that we respect their work." Mia and Lily nodded, adjusting their positions slightly, while Tom stepped back fully behind the boundary. They felt a mix of embarrassment and relief, realizing how close they had come to truly disrupting the ceremony. It was then that the senior guard, who had been observing silently, made a slow, deliberate step forward. His boots clicked against the stone floor with a sound that seemed to reverberate through the courtyard. The tourists froze instantly, their excitement replaced by a wave of nervousness. The guard's eyes scanned the group carefully, stopping briefly on each of them. His expression remained calm, but there was a clear firmness in the way he carried himself, a quiet authority that demanded respect without a single word being spoken. "Please step back fully behind the line," the guard said, his voice deep but measured. It carried across the courtyard without needing to be loud, and immediately drew the attention of other visitors. Mia, Lily, and Tom instinctively complied, moving quickly but carefully to the proper spot. Raj had already been standing respectfully, nodding silently, while Mr. Singh guided the group further to ensure there were no mistakes. The guard's presence alone was enough to make the group reflect on their actions. For the first time, they fully understood the importance of the rules they had been ignoring. The ceremonies were not just for show. They were a symbol of history, pride, and discipline. The playful mischief that had seemed harmless moments before now felt weighty and inappropriate. Even Mia and Lily, who had been focused on capturing funny moments, felt a deep sense of embarrassment. The senior guard continued, his tone firm but not angry. "This post has stood for hundreds of years. Every guard here has trained for many months, sometimes years, to maintain the traditions of this place. Visitors are welcome, but it is important to respect the rules. These boundaries are not for decoration. They protect both the visitors and the dignity of the guards." His words were calm, yet their meaning resonated strongly with the group. Each sentence seemed to underline the gravity of the ceremony and the care with which it was performed. Mia swallowed nervously. We understand," she said quietly. Lily nodded, biting her lip, while Tom fidgeted slightly, feeling the weight of responsibility for his earlier actions. Raj, maintaining his usual composure, whispered softly, "We should have paid more attention. Now we understand why respect matters." Even though they had been warned before, hearing it directly from the guard made the lesson real in a way nothing else could. The senior guard then gestured to the rest of the group, indicating that they could remain behind the line but should observe silently. He returned to his position, resuming the final sequence of the ceremony with perfect precision. The tourists, now fully aware of the importance of their behavior, watched quietly. Their earlier excitement had transformed into careful admiration. They observed the intricate movements, the crisp rhythm of the boots, and the precise handling of the rifles, realizing that this was more than a performance. It was history brought to life. Nearby visitors noticed the shift in the tourists' demeanor. Some smiled, recognizing the group's newfound respect, while others nodded approvingly at their change in behavior. Mr. Singh stayed close, guiding the tourists subtly and ensuring they remained attentive. He could see that the lesson had been learned, and he felt a quiet satisfaction at the growth he could observe in the group. As the ceremony concluded, the guards formed a perfect line and performed a final salute. The sound of boots echoed through the courtyard one last time, and a respectful silence filled the air. The tourists, who had been caught up in the thrill of the moment earlier, now felt a profound sense of awe. They had witnessed discipline, history, and tradition in a way that photos and videos could never capture. The senior guard, satisfied that the visitors had understood the significance of the rules, returned to a stance of quiet vigilance. Mia looked at Lily and whispered, "I'm glad we didn't cause more trouble. I feel different now. Respectful, I guess." Lily nodded. "Me too. It was fun at first, but now I see why the rules matter. It's more than just standing there. It's about history, pride, and people who dedicate themselves to keeping traditions alive." Tom, still a little embarrassed, muttered, "I didn't realize it would feel so serious. I think I understand now. Respect is more important than a silly photo." Raj smiled quietly, proud that the group had finally grasped the lesson. Mr. Singh led them out of the courtyard, walking slowly so the group could reflect on what had just happened. The conversation was subdued, a mix of reflection and quiet admiration. The tourists began to discuss what they had learned, sharing thoughts about the importance of discipline, the pride of the guards, and the cultural significance of the historic post. The lesson was clear. Curiosity and excitement were natural, but respect and understanding were essential when visiting historic places. The group stopped for a moment near the exit, looking back at the guard post. The guards stood perfectly still, their uniforms crisp, their expressions calm. It was a powerful image, a reminder that respect and discipline were timeless values and that traditions deserve to be honored. The tourists, now fully aware of their earlier mistakes, felt a mixture of embarrassment and gratitude. They had learned an important lesson without anyone being hurt or upset, and that made the experience memorable in a different, more meaningful way. As they left the guard post, Mr. Singh summarized the morning with gentle words. "You have seen more than just a ceremony today. You have seen history, dedication, and respect. Remember this experience. Respect is always more important than amusement or curiosity." The group nodded, each person silently committing to carrying this lesson into their future travels. Even as they walked away, the echoes of the boots and the image of the disciplined guards lingered in their minds. The morning had begun with excitement, curiosity, and playful mischief, but it ended with understanding, reflection, and respect. The tourists had faced embarrassment, yes, but they had also gained knowledge and insight that would stay with them long after they left the historic guard post. The courtyard, now quiet and filled with the lingering warmth of the morning sun, seemed to hold its own approval. The guards, still vigilant and composed, had performed their duty perfectly, not just to preserve tradition, but to teach visitors the importance of respect and discipline. For the tourists, it was a lesson learned in a memorable, real-life way, one that combined curiosity, fun, mistakes, and ultimately, understanding. The afternoon sun had softened, casting a warm glow over the historic guard post. The courtyard, once filled with the rhythmic sound of boots and the quiet murmurs of visitors, was now calmer. The tourists walked slowly, reflecting on the morning's events. Mia adjusted her camera strap, but this time she did not rush to take photos. She glanced back at the guards, standing tall and unwavering, and felt a sense of respect that she had not felt earlier. Lily walked beside her, her laughter now replaced by thoughtful silence. Even Tom, who had been the most daring of the group, walked carefully, his eyes wide with a mixture of curiosity and contemplation. Raj led the way, a small smile on his face, quietly proud that the group had come to understand the importance of the experience. As they reached a shaded spot near the garden outside the courtyard, the group gathered together to talk. The conversation was different from the playful chatter that had filled the morning. Now, it was reflective and sincere. Mia spoke first, her voice soft. "I never realized how serious it all is. At first, it seemed funny to take silly photos and get close, but now I see it's about more than that. It's about respect and tradition." Lily nodded. "Yes, I think we learned the hard way." It was exciting to be close to the guards, but it felt wrong when the senior guard stepped forward. That moment really made me think. I didn't want to cause trouble, but I was having fun in the wrong way. Tom, usually eager to rush from one adventure to another, spoke quietly. "I've been to many places, but this was different. I wanted to get close, to see everything, but I didn't understand how important the rules were. Seeing the guard step forward, it made me realize that respect is more important than a photo or a joke." Raj, who had remained thoughtful throughout, added, "That's the lesson here. Curiosity and excitement are natural, but they must be guided by understanding and respect. The guards are not just performing a ceremony, they represent history and dedication. By respecting them, we respect the culture and the people who maintain it." Mr. Singh, standing nearby, smiled quietly at the group's reflection. He knew that the tourists had experienced a valuable lesson, one that could not be taught by books or pictures alone. "You have all learned something important today," he said gently. "History is not just in the past. It lives through people, through ceremonies, and through respect. By observing, by listening, and by understanding the rules, you honor both the past and the present." The tourists looked around the courtyard one last time. The guards continued their duties, their movements steady and precise. It was a quiet reminder that life at the historic post went on as it had for centuries. Visitors came and went, each one experiencing the ceremony in their own way. Some took pictures from a safe distance, others watched silently, absorbing the discipline and tradition. But for Mia, Lily, Tom, and Raj, the experience had transformed from playful curiosity to meaningful understanding. Mia adjusted her camera one final time, but this time, she only took a few careful photos from a respectful distance. She wanted to remember the day, but she also wanted to honor the guards and their dedication. Lily, inspired by the experience, suggested they write a short note in a visitor's book that was kept near the courtyard. "We should leave a message thanking the guards for their work and for teaching us respect," she said. The group agreed, and together they penned a thoughtful note, expressing admiration for the guards, dedication, and reflecting on the lessons they had learned. As they walked toward the exit, the guide continued to share stories about the history of the guard post. He spoke of how the post had been established centuries ago to protect the city, how generations of guards had trained for discipline and precision, and how every ceremony was a tribute to tradition. The tourists listened attentively, their minds absorbing not just the facts, but also the sense of pride and dedication behind each story. Mia whispered to Lily, "I think I understand now why we needed to be careful. It's not just about the guards, it's about the history they represent. We were lucky to witness it." Lily nodded, her eyes bright. "Yes, I feel like we were part of something bigger than ourselves." It's amazing to think that we can learn respect and history at the same time. Tom added quietly, I'm going to remember this every time I visit a historic site. I won't rush or try to push boundaries anymore. Respect comes first. The group's reflections were interrupted by a small ceremony taking place near the garden gate. A guard was demonstrating a traditional salute, and visitors nearby watched with interest. The tourists observed quietly, noting the precision and care in each movement. They realized that these simple actions, repeated day after day, were what kept the tradition alive. It was a lesson not only in discipline, but also in patience and dedication. Mr. Singh paused near a bench, inviting the group to sit and continue discussing what they had learned. Travel is not just about seeing new places, he said. It is about understanding them. Every culture, every tradition, and every historic site has its own rules and meaning. By learning and respecting them, you gain more than memories. You gain understanding and wisdom. The tourists reflected on the morning's excitement, the mischief they had tried, and the gentle scolding they had received. Mia laughed softly. I can't believe we almost caused a problem. I feel embarrassed, but I also feel like we learned something important. It's funny looking back, but serious at the same time. Lily nodded, adding, Yes, I think it will stick with me. I'll remember the guards, the rules, and how important it is to pay attention. It was a real-life lesson. Tom, who had been the most daring, looked thoughtful. I think I understand now. It's not about being brave or funny. It's about being mindful and respectful. I won't forget this day. Raj smiled, proud that even the most playful members of the group had absorbed the lesson. It's good to have fun, he said, but it's even better when fun comes with understanding. As they prepared to leave, the group walked slowly through the courtyard, glancing back one final time. The guards stood at attention, their posture perfect, their faces calm. The sunlight glinted off their uniforms, highlighting the details and craftsmanship that had been maintained for generations. It was a lasting image, a symbol of history, discipline, and respect. Mia took one last photo from a safe distance, this time with a sense of reverence rather than mischief. Lily smiled quietly, feeling that the day had been more meaningful than any picture could capture. Tom adjusted his bag and said softly, I hope we can share what we learned with others. Respect is so important, and sometimes it takes experiencing it to understand. Raj nodded, silently agreeing, and together they walked toward the exit, their steps measured and thoughtful. Outside the post, the group paused to talk about the day's events. They laughed lightly, remembering their initial excitement and playful attempts to get closer to the guards. But the laughter was now mixed with understanding and respect. They discussed how travel was more than sightseeing. It was about learning, observing, and honoring the places they visited. The lesson was clear. History and tradition deserved attention, care, and appreciation. As they left the historic guard post behind, the tourists felt a sense of fulfillment. They had begun the day full of curiosity and playful energy, but they were leaving with a deeper understanding of respect, culture, and tradition. The guards remained behind, continuing their duty with unwavering focus, while the tourists carried with them a story of learning, reflection, and personal growth. The journey back to their hotel was quiet but filled with thoughtful conversation. Mia talked about how she would share the story with her friends, emphasizing not just the photos, but the lesson learned. Lily promised herself she would approach future visits with more care and mindfulness. Tom reflected on how he could be adventurous while still respecting boundaries, and Raj felt a quiet pride in the group's growth. By the time the group returned to their hotel, the sun had begun to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. The day had been filled with excitement, curiosity, mistakes, lessons, and reflection. It was more than a simple visit to a historic guard post. It was an experience that would remain in their hearts and minds for years to come. As they said goodnight to each other, the sense of learning lingered. Mia whispered to Lily, "I'll never forget this day, not because of the photos but because of the lesson." Lily smiled, "Neither will I. It's something real, something meaningful." Tom added quietly, "Respect first, that's what I'll remember." Raj nodded, satisfied that the story of the day had transformed from mischief to understanding, leaving a lasting impression on everyone. The guards, standing silently in the courtyard behind them, continued their timeless watch. Their dedication and discipline had taught an important lesson without a single harsh word. The tourists had left with memories, photos, and most importantly, a deeper understanding of respect and tradition. The historic guard post remained a place of learning, reflection, and admiration, a reminder that history lives not only in stone and ceremony, but in the behavior and understanding of those who witness it.